Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for the seven-figure entrepreneur who's looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner, who's also done over 28,000 coaching sessions with seven-figure entrepreneurs. Also joining me, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Memorial Day.
Yes.
Happy Memorial Day. And this is the time we thank those that served and gave the ultimate sacrifice for us. And so we just thank them and their families and all that. And just say thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you. It's more than just hot dogs and hamburgers, Eric,
For sure. I'm so glad you said that. We certainly appreciate our veterans and those who are serving as we speak. And we thank you and we appreciate all you do to keep us safe. So definitely happy Memorial Day, one and all. Hopefully, this is not your everyday podcast. And I'm talking to my guest backstage all this time, and I didn't get a chance to give him a heads up, but he got a taste of it towards
right
before we came on.
I think you're ready. I think he's ready.
Let me tell you, he looks the part. He sounds the part. You could tell when you got a pro.
That's it.
Yeah, this is not his first rodeo. Let me tell you. Now, but we're going to be talking about a great topic today about how to find your voice amongst the noise, right? Because I don't care what you do from a business standpoint. If you're an entrepreneur, there are thousands of other people who are doing the same thing and trying to accomplish the same thing. So there's got to be a way. You have to come up with a way to find your voice amongst the noise. And we're going to talk about how to do that. That's going to be our topic. So you definitely want to lean in and really pay close attention to what he's going to share so that you can take this back and apply it to your business and take what you're doing to that next level. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on right now with an official introduction. He is the founder of Podcast Town. He's known as the mayor. He started Podcast Town to help folks find their voice among the noise through podcasting. And he's helped and continues to help partners turn that voice into a powerful, long tail marketing tool. And it doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be real. Please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour podcast, Elzie Flenard.
I certainly appreciate it, Eric and Ted. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm excited to be here and I'm just ready to talk about business, podcasting, and entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. We've been wanting to do this for quite a while. So because you've taken something that started out as a passion and you've made it a full-time business that replaced your high income job.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to unpack all of that because I know there's a lot of people.
Absolutely. We want to unpack that.
Yeah, that's what Ted. I was talking to him about coming on the show. He mentioned all that. I'm like, man, yeah, we got to get him on.
Gotta have you on here.
For sure. But let's give everybody the kind of the backdrop and the kind of the background perspective. So you were at one point at Southern Illinois University. So as an undergraduate, like what were your career plans at that time?
Yeah. So I'll take it back a little bit further. So when I was in high school, I didn't think I was smart enough to go to college, number one. And I didn't think I could afford to go to college because college was expensive. That was only for the rich kids and the kids who, parents went to school. So I was going to go to the Army. Nothing wrong with the Army, right? As we talk on this Memorial Day. But I thought that was my only option. So that's what I was going to do. And it was my sister who was in the Army at the time who came back home and she started to plant these seeds of hope and inspiration in me. She would say things like, you know what, Elzie, you're really smart. You could do this if you wanted to, that type of thing. And it stuck. It started to sink in. And then one day I decided that I would listen to her. I would say, you know what, I'm going to go to college. And I remember distinctly, like it was yesterday, having this conversation with my recruiter at the time, and telling him I kind of shifted my dream that I wanted to go to college now. And he looked me right in the eye and he said, "You'll never do it." And it was in that moment that I decided not only would I do it, but I'm gonna do it well, and I'm going to exceed. And so I decided to go into electronics. So I worked a few years in electronics, electrical engineering. Then my latter part of my corporate career got into operations because I really loved understanding how processes worked, how you can leverage people, resources, vision, strategy, put that all together, and then managing the P&L, the profit and loss. And so, but I knew two things. I knew I wanted a family because I didn't have the one that I thought I deserved growing up, and I knew I wanted to own my own business. And so my plan was, education is important to my mom, so I'm going to do that. So I want to make her proud. And so landed in Southern Illinois, did that, got through it, landed my first corporate job. But I said to myself, the second, and I do mean the second, I can quit this day job and do my own thing, that's what I was going to do. So I had these side gigs for the better part of 15 years. I was a music producer. I had a record label. At one time, I owned a minor league basketball team. And so I did all of these things, and I just couldn't figure out how to get them to work so that I could quit my day job. And so one day I was sitting at my whiteboard and I said, okay, I could do this another 15 years and literally kill myself because I was working 45, 50 hours a week and doing the side gig, or I can do something different. So what I decided, I'll start a podcast. I'll get these business people in front of me for an hour and ask them the questions that I need to know so that I can scale this thing up and quit this job. So that's what I did. Plan worked. Beautiful family, wife of, it'll be 21 years this year, 2 beautiful children, and I am doing my own thing. So the plan took a little bit longer than I anticipated, but the plan worked.
Wow. So your whole reason for starting the podcast was to learn from entrepreneurs what it takes to scale and be on your own. You just basically applied what you learned and took off yourself.
Exactly.
Huh. So how long did it take you from the time you had episode number 1? Like, how long did it take you to get to the point where you were just solely on your own?
Yeah, it took about 3 years. I launched my show literally, gentlemen, in my car on my lunch break at my day job. And I was leaned back hiding from my coworkers because I didn't want them to know that I had a podcast, because then they would start asking questions, right? So it was the middle of the summer, 2016. And then 2019, I was able to completely quit my day job and go full time.
Huh. Man. So that's incredible. And that should give someone that's watching or listening to us some serious inspiration. And then I still go back to what you said earlier. I think it was your mom who gave you the encouragement. You thought you weren't intelligent enough. And I think it's good to always have people around you that see things in you that you don't see in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if my mom, I know it's a close tie between my mom and my grandma and my sister. I could tell my grandmother, Grandma, I'm gonna build a rocket and go to the moon. She would go and get her wig, her fishing pole, and her bag, and wait for me on the front porch. Like, she believed in me that much.
Yeah.
My mom the same way. I could tell her, hey, I'm gonna do this thing. She's like, all right, let me know when. And it was just that support system, like people that believed in me, sometimes more than I believed in myself. That, those are the things that got me through those hard moments when I didn't think it was going to work, and when there was negative balances in my bank account. It was knowing that those people were in my corner that helped me get through those difficult moments, for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So if you could go back and talk to that younger version of yourself who is just starting out, maybe after you did your first episode, knowing what you now know, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, I don't think I will give myself any shortcuts because I think it's the journey that makes you who you are in the moment. But what I would share is I would share go deeper, go harder, and just learn as much as you possibly can, right? Because there's so many things that we can learn from each other, either by observing or asking the right questions. So I would just tell myself go deeper in your curiosity. Just be curious, and just be open to doing things that are different than what you thought they would look, how you thought they would look. Because if you would have told me 7 years ago that I would be sitting here today, founder, CEO of a podcast town, I would say you're crazy, right? I'm not, it wasn't even on my radar, right? So I would tell myself just be focused, be intentional, and just be open to the possibilities.
Be focused, be intentional, and be open. And so Ted and I, we really feel like we vibe with you because we're like on a similar path, as it relates to really leveling up. And when we look at some of our conversations with our guests as education for us too. So I'm just curious because that really sticks in my mind. Like, is there like one piece of advice on this journey when you were trying to go from working for somebody to being an entrepreneur? Was there one episode, one piece of advice you got that you really feel like stood out and helped you to get to where you are?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that if I look back on my journey, right, of being I call it independent contractor because really that's what you are as an employee, but it's mindset. When I started to think differently about my role as an individual contributor, business owner, and think of myself as a business owner, I looked at the organization different. I watched the CEO, how they moved, how they made decisions. I watched the first line management, how they navigated policy, even when they didn't agree, right? How they led, both good and poor. I looked at how the people who stood out, what were their characteristics? And I looked looked at it as if it were my business. How would I run it? How would I do it differently? Why do they have these policies? How would I do it differently? And I took the good and the bad, and I said, okay, when it's my company, here's how we're going to run it. When we are building out our compensation policy, here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to be transparent. Here, so I really just started looking at it as if I were the CEO of my own company, and learning from the brand that I was working for. And it was that sort of got me over the hump, because before I was kind of thinking about things as an employee. And it didn't translate well to owning a business because my mindset wasn't in the right place. When I shifted that, then I started thinking, okay, what's my top line revenue that I need to get where need to be financially? Okay, now I have expenses. What's my take home? Taxes. What's my liability? What's my contingency? Things like that. Then I could go to the marketplace and say, okay, here's the product and service that I'm bringing to the market. What is the market willing to pay for this? How do I do market research? So questions like that, I would ask my guests. It's like, hey, how do you do market research in a services-based business? And they would tell me. And then I would go and I would apply to my business. And I would say, hey, how do you think about pricing in a competitive landscape? And then I would apply it to my business. And I just repeated that process until I got to the point where it's like, okay, now I have a 6 to 12 month runway. Now I can go to my wife and say, hey, wife, I know we got a mortgage, 2 kids, and all this stuff. I want to quit my day job and do this thing full time. And she's like, okay, because I had a plan and I had set it out and I said, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what the company's making today. I think if I put more time into it, I can really scale this thing up. And she's like, okay, I support you. Let's do it. So to answer your question, it was that shift in mindset and really thinking about things as a business owner at the scale, the level that I wanted to be. That was the difference for me.
That's brilliant, right? I mean, there's so many ways to learn, right? You can be like, okay, I can read this, I can go to classes and all that. But if you're having opportunities to interview those that have basically done it and ask them questions, because really in a lot of situations like that, that's like consulting time. Like somebody could charge you for sitting down with them an hour and asking all type of questions. But if they're on your show and they're giving that information, you're able to get that information and come up with a strategy. That was great. The other thing is when you start talking about like thinking from like a CEO, and being a CEO myself for some time, like it's totally a different mindset, like you said. It's totally a different. Whereas, I got to be careful how I say this, but like when you're an employee, you kind of feel that you're entitled to some things. Like the company owes you a check every 2 weeks for the work. Company owes you training. A company owes you, a lot of these things. Whereas the CEO, no one owes you anything, right? If you don't get the business, you don't have the business. If you don't go get the right employees, you don't have the right employees. People are like, oh man, you can go in the office when you want and do absolutely. And you can work as long as you want or not. Sure you can. But then you're not going to be successful. So you're not doing anything but really cheating yourself. So when people are like, oh, you're working all the time and you're working on the weekends and you're working on the holiday. Yeah. That's what you got to do when you're in this chair, right? Because you got to make it happen. Where you guys in that other chair are thinking, hey, the doors of this business are always going to be open. They hired me, so there's always going to be a place for me to go. And it's up to us to make sure that in the big chair, right? In the big chair, that there's an office, that the payroll is met and all those things. So it's a totally different mindset.
And I'll share too that this chair, as you affectionately refer to it, there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. So one of the other things that I would tell myself is, hey, there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. Make sure you understand how to manage that appropriately, right? Because a lot of times people don't talk about the depression, the physical ailments that CEOs face, things like that. And so I would tell myself, hey, make sure you're watching those things. Listen to your body. When you start feeling run down, take some time, refresh, regroup, because it's an enormous amount of stress and pressure.
I'm glad you brought that up. So what rituals do you have to manage the stress and the depression that could come?
Yeah, I'm a thinker. So I'll spend afternoons, sometimes full days, just thinking. I'll get on a whiteboard and just think. Nothing in particular, just let my mind, be free. The other thing I love to do is I'll go to the movies on a Tuesday at noon by myself. My routine is I'll have a hot dog, a soda, vanilla Pepsi, so to be specific, and some popcorn, and just enjoy the movie and non-disturbed, right? Because I have to turn my phone off, right? Because that would be rude. So my phone is off. Nobody can contact me. I can't contact anybody. I can just go and be in the story for a couple of hours. And so I'll do that when I feel like, I'm stressed out or I'm getting to that point where people are annoying me. It's like, okay, it's time to take a pause and take a break and refresh.
I think that's critical because I think there's somebody maybe looking at you and thinking, oh, it's all sunshine and rainbows. He's working for himself. He's doing what he loves to do and it's his business. But there's that other side that you have to be able to manage. And I always say, I think the whole mindset thing, it's not like you just say an affirmation and you're good, right? I mean, you have to literally have a system of keeping the right thoughts in your head, whether it's reading, listening to podcasts, meditation, prayer. I mean, you have to have a regular system, or otherwise, it's easy to go into a downward spiral.
It's interesting. I would have never thought to just go to the movies in the middle of the day.
Oh man,
by myself. I would have
never
thought about that. And something as small as that is big, right? Take some time to yourself, whatever it is, whether it's movies or you decide you want to just go play golf for 9 holes by yourself, or whatever it is, to just get away from it all. Yeah, that's good. And then when you talked about the whiteboard, I'm a whiteboard guy, right? It's about that, because I think what happens a lot of times is, like, once you get into the day, I think you're just like, you're running, right? You're not really, you don't have really a lot of time, for me, to strategize during the day. You're more executing and operating during the day, right? But you need that time offline where you're looking at this and saying, okay, what am I doing? Have I been going around this hamster wheel? And it's been a bunch of activity, right? But activity doesn't necessarily mean movement. It just means you've been running. And in the end of the day, that activity, you're still going to feel the effects of it. You're still going to be tired. You're worn out, because I've been running all day. And you look and you're like, man, I'm in the same place. I've been running like this for 6 months. And that time that you stop and look at this and be like, okay, how do I turn activity into true movement is essential.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too. The other thing I feel like a street preacher, right, is coaching. When you get to the point where you're doing those activities and you don't feel like you're making progress, that's where a really good coach comes in, because they can help you identify those blind spots and those things where sometimes it even feels like you're making progress, where a coach can come in and say, hey, Elzie, you know, you should really be focusing your attention here, because these activities are generating the most revenue, or these activities are really building relationships internally. So I think that's a really good point, where we really have to have that team around us that can help us identify, because when you're in the game, you can't see from an objective perspective.
Yeah, like you said,
Absolutely.
it's hard to see the picture when you're stuck inside the frame. No, I totally agree with that. And that's even the value of going to the movies, or some other thing where you're just getting away from it
Right.
altogether. I'd be
Yeah.
willing to bet, after you come back from the movies every now and then, you may have the answer to something you're struggling with.
You know what? I'm one of those people. I can see the inspirational moment in anything. My kids
Yeah.
tease me all the time. They're like, Dad, how did you just manage to turn that into a life lesson? I'm always seeing the life lesson in everything.
Yeah. So now I'm curious, like what's something that was hard for you when you first started as an entrepreneur, that right now is still a struggle for you?
Ooh, I'm gonna be transparent. Sales.
Mm.
And sales, because at every level it's different. Like when I first started, it was people that that I knew, people in my immediate circle. And then when you scale up, now you scale outside of that circle, and then you scale up again. Now it's even more different, because these are people that are on an even higher level. They need different things, they have different wants, they have different pressures, different friction points. And so it's this exercise of always figuring out, okay, what's the friction point today?
Mm.
How does what we do solve that friction point, and how do we effectively articulate how we solve that friction point? So it's always changing. It's like, if it would just stay the same, I could master it and then be okay, but it's always changing, it's always iterating. And so it's always me staying on top of it, and staying on top of my game, so that I'm always clearly articulating how what we do serves and solves that friction point.
Yeah. So Ted, I'm curious to hear from you on this. I mean, this is something that you deal with in your company all the time.
As far as,
Well, just the sale, the constant, focus on sales, and
Mhm.
you know that type of thing. He said.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I remember reading something one time. It's like, if you're saying business or whatever, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you have no choice. You don't have any choice. And again, going back to, what seat you're sitting in, right? You're sitting in, how to say, the little seat, right? Where it's not your business, right? And these goals come down from the top down. I need you to do this. I need you to do that and all that. And, that's unrealistic and and how I'm going to do that. And then when you're in the big chair, it's like, oh, no, this has to happen because I got these things that need to be dealt with for the company to keep the company going. And again, in that place, it's like, you got to figure it out. Like, you got to figure it out. Like, you have no choice. Oh, we missed it this quarter. Okay. If you keep missing it, your business is going to be done. Like, you can't keep missing it. It's not optional to hit the goals, right? So that's it. So you gotta, if you're in business, my team always hears me talk about Chick-fil-A all the time. They're in the chicken sandwich business, right? They selling chicken sandwiches. Chickens are losing their lives daily. A chicken don't want to go nowhere near Chick-fil-A, Elzie, Eric. They don't, right? Because they know it's going down. If they see a chicken just walking by, you're gonna be in a bun. You're gonna be in a bun. You're gonna be in the nuggets. You're gonna be on a salad. I mean, that's just it. Every day. When the pandemic hit, all right, y'all going outside, set up outside, sell them sandwiches, sell that chicken. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's how it is in our business. Whatever that chicken is that we're supposed to be selling in our business, the services, product, or whatever, it's got to be sold. And if the folks in the smaller seats, if they leave the company, you still got to sell whatever it is you got to be selling. So it's up to us to figure it out. And I feel like, in my company, there's never been a person that's been a better salesperson in my company and selling my product, services, whatever, than me.
Yep.
Why? Not because I'm the smartest, because I don't have any choice, Eric. Elzie, I don't get no choice. If I don't do it, it's not going to be done. And these other people in the little seats, they'll go find another job. Another job is not an option, Elzie. This is it.
This is it.
You told your wife, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Everybody, wife, mama, grandma, everybody supported you. And you're like, well, now, oh, no. You got to get out there and make this work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we have no choice. That's it. And it's got to be that mindset, that do or die mindset when you're in the big chair. You cannot think that anyone owes you anything. It's up to you to figure out how to get that thing going, especially once you make that jump, right? I had a situation similar to yours, Elzie, when I worked for the government, and I remember I started the company on the side, and my grandmother, when she was living, she was just like, whatever you do, baby, don't leave your job. Don't leave that good government job, whatever you do. And I was like, but in my mind, I was always thinking, oh, I'm going to leave this job. I'm sitting there working out. I can't wait to leave this job. I'm going to leave this job. And so then once I finally left the job, I did not tell them, right? Because they still saw me getting up, doing what I was doing. Because back then they were like, what? So I left the job. And I don't think I really told them until like maybe 6 months later. Mm-hmm. All right, baby, well, how's the business going? Like, because I'm all in at that point. You done left the job. I see you still, eating and putting gas in your car and still got your place. So you must be all right. So yeah, it's no choice. Once you make that jump, that's when you really are all, you're all in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good stuff. And that was what, 27 years ago, Ted?
Yeah, when I was 5 years old, Eric.
There you go.
Years ago.
So it looks like the jump worked out very well.
Thank God. But it has been there's times that if I knew what Elzie was telling me, that I'd have been in a bunch of movies. I've seen that Joker at the movie theater again.
Ted's watching The Little Mermaid right now.
Look, I'm right there at The Little Mermaid crying. He crying about The Little Mermaid. No, he crying about what's going on in business.
That's funny.
Man. So Elzie, let's talk about Podcast Town. You're the founder of Podcast Town. Like, what is it and what inspired you to start it?
So Podcast Town is a full service podcast company, and we help businesses grow revenue through podcasting, quite simply. So we do that in a few ways. We help with launching the podcast, managing it, and helping you grow revenue through your podcast. And funny story, it was kind of on accident with me launching the company, because remember I told you the only reason I launched my podcast was to learn from business people. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a strategy. There was no business model. I just wanted to talk to business people. Okay. And so one day I'm having a conversation, and in the green room, after we had hit stop on the record, I said, "Hey, business person, if you were me," and I would give them a bit of context on what I was trying to do. I said, "If you were me, what would you be doing?"
Mm.
And then one day they said, "I would help people start podcasts." That had never occurred to me. Never even crossed my mind. And I thought, okay, I'll try it. And so that's what I did. I started, offering that as a service. And then over the years, we added different services as we gained competency in an area. We would then offer it as a service. But it's just been an iterative process of me listening to the market, and taking that feedback and implementing it into the business. And so that's how we sort of became this full service company where we're helping with everything from launching the show to managing the show to running the entire show on behalf of our residents.
Awesome. And I think that's a great question to ask a mentor or a coach, or if you were me, what would you be doing? And that's literally what birthed Podcast Town. That's incredible. So we've got some entrepreneurs that they're watching us. They're like, I keep hearing about this podcasting thing. I see Eric and Ted sometimes. Everybody's talking about podcast. So why is it beneficial for me to start a podcast? What would your answer to that question be, Elzie?
How much time do I have? Because there's so many benefits. I'll try to be brief. So really, in all honesty, the biggest reason is relationship. If you are in business, the number one thing you are doing is you're building, maintaining, growing, nurturing, caring for relationships. I can't tell you how many relationships I have built because of my show, or because of being on the show, or because of helping promote a show. My life is built on relationships. So I would say that's number one. The other thing is it really helps you get good at articulating your value, your vision, and how you serve the world. When people see your face, they hear your voice, they see your passion. Podcast listeners can see that stuff. We have like a sixth sense. We know when you're for real or when you're not. We know when you're authentic or when you're just saying what you've heard everybody say. We know, we can tell. And so there's no better way to get that across to listeners and viewers than doing podcasting. The other thing is it teaches you how to find an audience, serve an audience, and monetize an audience, which is literally the exact same thing that you're doing in your business, right? It gives you smaller iterative reps in doing that over and over again. It allows you to try different things, right? I could be in the cupcake business, but I could start a podcast about what my personal whatever, and I can iterate. I could say, well, is there a market for people who love pink cupcakes with rainbow ponies on them? And I can start a podcast to test that theory. So there's all kind of ways that you can leverage podcasting, but those are the big ones. Relationships, this thing I call return on relationship, ROR. That has been huge for my business.
No, that's awesome. You really articulated that well. I know we had one of our previous podcast guests. That was she told us something pretty interesting because she was in a similar space to you where she helped people get podcasts. She said, "Look, Eric, I don't care how many listeners we have, right? I'm just trying to get people on my podcast I can do business with. That's it."
Yep.
We got one download, so as far as I care.
Yeah, I don't even think I looked at my downloads for the first 6 months. Because for me, it didn't matter.
Like we have a Wi-Fi issue on
a bad connection on this side. Eric, this is when you start singing as a filler.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Ted, because I have a song prepared for times like this.
Right.
I'm trying to, give it time for him to come back with his.
Come on back in. But no, I think some good discussion, man. Good points on, why, he's, you're kind of getting into, doing podcasts. Elzie, it was getting a little shaky, man. I was about to have Eric sing to Phil, and I was like, man, he got to come on quick. He got to come on quick. So we're
You
glad
came
you're
back
back.
just in time.
You
I was
came
about
back
to start.
just in time.
You guys lost me. I was wondering what happened.
We lost you. And here's the thing about, what happens when you freeze. It's never with the flattering picture. So you was looking kind of funny. It was kind of like, what is wrong? What is happening? So glad you're back.
Got it. Where did you lose me?
So we were talking about the idea of relationships, and I given you the example of our guest who said it really was just about her getting people she wanted to do business with on her show, and then that's when you were starting to talk about you didn't track your downloads. Then I think that's when we lost you.
Got it. No, I was just saying that, probably for the first 6 months, I didn't even look at my numbers because that didn't matter. For me, it was about the relationship and the brand exposure. So what is that journey from the time I reach out to you to the time you accept the booking to the time that I follow up with you? What is that process like? What are my touch points as a brand? That was where I put my focus. I didn't at that point, things are different now, but at that point I didn't really even look at my downloads.
Yeah. I mean, and it goes back to being strategic, and just having a vision for what you want to do, and then being able to kind of start, okay, what's the next step to get me to where I'm trying to go? How do these steps line up with the ultimate goal? So what steps can people take? People now that they're anxious, they want to find their voice amongst the noise. What do you what steps do you recommend people take to find their voice amongst the noise?
Yeah, my short answer is it depends. Okay. Now you have some people who you've already established a customer base, so you know who your customers are, where they hang out online. You can clearly articulate your voice, how you show up to the world, that type of thing. For you, just get started. Start having conversations. And it's going to be iterative. It's going to change over time. If you haven't gotten there yet, take some time to figure those things out before you launch your show. Don't launch your show like I launched my show because, again, I didn't have a strategy. I didn't have a plan. I just got on the microphone and started talking. Now, that can be an effective strategy if you're a procrastinator and you just need to do things. But just know that, around episode 10, 12, 15, 20, 25, you're going to have to make some tweaks and some adjustments and start implementing some strategy planning into that. But the biggest, most important thing is just get started. Get started with really understanding your why you want to launch the show in the first place, and start reaching out, because the more reps you get, the better you'll get at the whole process. And it is a process. But the most important thing is to just get started.
Just get started. All right. And so you have I'm sure you help people with different ideas to grow their show. Like what's the best idea that you know of to help someone who wants to increase their downloads, let's say?
So if you want to increase your downloads, I would say don't worry about increasing your downloads. Focus on adding value to your listener. Now, having said that, I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but really you want to develop mechanisms so that you can effectively triangulate your listener and then scale from there. And what I mean by that is, do you have an email list? If you have a Facebook group, if you have some way of knowing what level of engagement you have from people who are listening, and then triangulate that. For example, if you look in your podcast host, and let's just use 100 for an easy round number, because I'm a recovering engineer. I forgot all that stuff, right? So I got to keep it easy. So you have 100 downloads and you have an email list of 100 people, let's just say for simplicity. And 50 of those people, every time you send them an email, you have your podcast linked in your email. They're clicking that email to listen. It's reasonable to assume that you have 50 people who are actually listening, because a listen and a download are not the same thing. If I'm subscribed to your podcast, every time you release it, it's going to download to me. So it's a download. That doesn't mean I listen to it, right?
Mm.
So understanding that that's the difference, right? Listen and play. And now if these 50 people are clicking on your link and taking action based off of that link, now you can start to build a relationship and triangulate that scientifically, right? So I can say, okay, well, I know if I'm at 50%, my open rate is 50%, my click-through rate is 50%. Now I can scale that, as opposed to worrying about, okay, I got 1,000 downloads, but nobody's opening my email, nobody's clicking the email, nobody's doing anything. My Facebook group isn't growing, nothing's growing. I'm just getting a bunch of downloads. The latter is more important, right? Understanding actions that your podcast is driving is more important than it's not necessarily a vanity number, but it's more important than those downloads, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So if you want to grow your downloads, make sure you're focused on those things, because then you can effectively triangulate. So you can say, okay, what things am I doing to get these 50 people to effectively take the action that I want them to take? And then you scale that and you focus on that.
Mm.
So it sounds like it really is more about engagement,
Absolutely.
more so than just seeing a number.
Absolutely. Engagement and action. I want to know, what are you doing as a result of hearing this content or watching this content?
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And so I'm sure you've got some success stories from people who you've worked with at Podcast Town, who maybe they started out, they were intimidated by the IT aspects of the show, and now they're great podcasters. Please share a couple of those memorable stories that come to mind for you.
Yeah, one of the things that I hang our hat on is we try to take away all of that stuff, right? We want our residents, we call our clients residents, to show up and perform. So they get on the microphone, they do their brilliant thing, and they go and they run their business, right? And then we take care of everything else. So that's the first thing I would say is just hearing the stories of our residents saying, "Hey, Elzie, I was so intimidated to start the show because I didn't know how I was going to record it, or about the video, or the social clips and the management and all the stuff that you need to do in order to have a successful show." We took that off their plate, and they're grateful, because now they can grow and scale their business, focus on building relationships and growing in that way. But one story that I always like to share is this coaching client came to us, and they were like, well, we want to start this podcast, and we want people to feel, we want them to see what it feels like to work with us. So we designed a show for them, and in the first 6 months, they tripled their clinic attendance. So, and those translate to real numbers, right? And so,
Wow.
we have stories and stories and stories like that, where we're helping drive the top line and the bottom line of business owners through their podcast.
No, that's excellent. You can triple your visits. I mean, that's having an impact.
Yeah.
And I don't know that everybody who starts a podcast sees that potential in doing it. So let's shift gears a little bit, Elsie. Let's get to know the mayor. Like what's something that you're most proud of when you look back at your accomplishments that most people don't know?
That I'm most proud of that most people don't know. That's a good one. But to be honest, I'm really, really proud of where we are today. Like I said, if you'd have told me 7 years ago that I would be here in this seat talking to you guys, I would laugh at you. I would think that you're insane, right? So I'm just proud that we're here, that we're serving the world in the way that we are, because I happen to believe that conversation and dialogue is one of the most important things that we have on this planet, right? To be able to talk with people and to help people share their vision and their dream. That's important, and the world needs that. This might not be the type of answer you're looking for, but a funny fact about me is I can move my ears without moving my face. I bet you've never had a guest tell you that.
This is a
first. I want to see it.
I'd like to see that. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, I'm only doing it in 3D. So if I ever fly out to DC, or you guys ever come to Milwaukee, then I can show you.
That's a first. I don't think we've ever had anybody say that on the 30-minute.
Never. It's the first. It's always the first.
This is a groundbreaking show. Let me tell you.
Absolutely. Move your ears without moving your face.
You guys think there's potential for that as a business model? Can I teach other people how to move their ears
I don't
without?
think
You think
anyone
no?
else. I don't think
No.
Elzie, I don't think anyone else wants to.
Are you
There may
sure,
be
Ted?
one person like Switzerland or somewhere that maybe like they've always wanted to do that, but
But you never know, right?
you never know. Put it out there. Next thing you know, I'm gonna be looking one day and I'm like, this guy made $1 billion off of showing people how. I did not know that. So if that's your dream, go with it. Don't let me get in the way. Let's see. It may be some people that want to move their ears and not move their face.
I mean, there was a time where I questioned why people would give away their content for free and allow a platform to make millions off of it. But here we are. People do it.
That's right.
Every day. For sure. And so you're on podcasts all the time. You get like asked all kinds of questions. Like, what's a question you never get asked that you wish people would ask you?
What? Man, that's a good question. So I get asked a lot of questions. What would I want people to ask that? How to write a song?
How to write
People
a song?
generally don't ask me that because I'll share that I've been a singer-songwriter since I was probably about 5 years old, and so people never really follow up with that question.
So the next question is, how do you write a song?
And I'll tell you the reason why that's a good question. Because I told you earlier that I find the life lesson in everything. Writing a song is a lot like running a business because you have to understand the language of the people that you're writing the song for. You have to be able to put yourself in their shoes, right? So there's empathy there. You have to be able to connect with them. So that's value proposition. And you have to be able to use language with music that moves them in the direction to the action that you want them to take. So do you want them to feel happy? Do you want them to feel sad? Do you want them to remember what it was like when they first fell in love, their first kiss? And you have to articulate that in a style that they can connect with. So that's the first step, is really understanding who is the song for, where do we want to take them from A to B? Do we want to take them from when they first met? Right. So for example, my wife and I, we met when we were in 8th grade and we, got married at 20. So do I want to take people on that journey so that when they hear the song, they go back to when they first met their first love? And then I take them through when they were dating in the second person. So you really have to understand the song structure and how much time you have to take people on that journey. And then you just kind of you write words that are going to connect, and then you again, related to business, you have to understand where your gifts are and where they are not. I'm terrible at arranging vocally, so I know I need a partner who's good at vocal arrangement. So that's not the words. That's just how you say the words. When you go up, when you go down, your tone, inflections, things like that. So as a business owner, you really have to understand those things. If you're not good at sales, you should probably partner with somebody that is. If you're not good at marketing, you probably need to get a marketing partner. Operations, are you good with people? If not, you should probably not be the touch point in your business. Same thing with writing a song. If you don't have engineering skills, you need to go to a studio, somebody who knows how to make it sound great. Right. So once you've got the lyrics, you know who you're writing the song for, you know what you want to say, what emotion you want to evoke, then you structure the song. So you have your pre-chorus, you have your verse, your chorus, and then your second verse, depending on the style of song it is, your hook or hook and your bridge. And then you write that. And your bridge, you want to take people from where they were to where you want them to be. Right. And then again, you're going to take them from your bridge to the climax of the song. So now you've taken them from when they were dating to when they fell in love to now the happily ever after. So you're structuring the song in a way that on the journey. And the action is it's okay. What action do you want people to take after? Do you want it to be happy, sad, or memorable? And then you just kind of write the song in that structure in that way. And then you get it produced. You get a person who can write the music, and then you get a person who can record it. You record it, and then you release it to the world.
Wow. Yeah, I never looked at songwriting that way.
I just hear a song, I like it. I like this song, but who knows all these things that go, to support it. But kind of back to what you're saying and looking at it from a business perspective, no one knows really what goes through, getting that providing those services or getting that contract, all the things that happen behind the scenes, and you just know, yeah, we're here, right? It's here's a song and I like it, or here's a song and I hate it.
Yep.
Yeah, and you think it's, oh man, that they got lucky, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
just same thing with business, right? You can look at somebody who's having a lot of success, but you don't see the work that goes behind it. They make it look easy, but there's a science to it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
now this has been awesome.
Yeah.
So we're at the final segment of the show. It's called Write This Down. And this is where we go around and leave at least one takeaway from today's episode that we want the people to write down so they can level up. So we'll start with Elsie, the mayor. So what do the people need to write down from this episode?
Yeah. I would say be focused, be intentional, be curious, be coachable, and never give up.
Mm, all right. Oh, well said. Write that down for sure. All right, Ted.
Elsie's a tough one to follow, especially after that whole music breakdown thing. But I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm going back to the whole big chair and the little chair, right? That big chair mentality. If you want to start a business and take that business to the next level, you have to have that big chair mindset, right? And you have to understand that everyone else is in those little chairs, right? And it's up to you, and they may not always agree with what you want to do or how you want to do it. But I mean, it's this is your show, and you're in the big chair, and you are responsible for keeping this business afloat, right? And you have to be all in, with it. And so, sometimes everyone's not going to be on the same page as you, but I mean, it's okay. And then, like Elsie said, sometimes you just need to go to the movies. Just go to the movies, right? And just saying that kind of in a symbolic way, but whatever it takes for you to, kind of get away and think and come up with how you're going to deal with you know whatever those challenges are within the company. It's up to you because you are in the big chair. So, yeah, do you really want that, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, do you want to be in the big chair? Do you want the buck to stop with you, right? Because it's easy to say. Everyone looks at it and says, oh man, this is glamorous. You got this. You go to work when you want to go to work. You can make all this money and you get to call all the shots and all of that. But then they don't, when you flip that coin to the other side that says, okay, here's these challenges, and they all really fall on your lap. And do are you willing to to shoulder all of that? So yeah, big chair mindset.
That's right. You have to have the big chair mindset. Make sure you write that down. So my piece for this is something I say all the time. It's that clarity is the starting point of success. Is that whatever if you want to start something, if it's a podcast, a business, you have to be clear on what is it that you want to accomplish, who is your target audience. So once you gain that clarity as far as what the end looks like, you can reverse engineer, right? You can say, okay, you know what? If I want to be out on my own as an entrepreneur, then I can get people who are out on their own as an entrepreneur on my podcast to learn from them, right? And eventually I'll acquire this knowledge and I can be out on my own as well. I mean, I thought that was a great example of starting with that level of clarity and to ultimately get to where you want to go. So definitely, I mean, I think if it means getting a mentor, getting a coach, if you feel like you can't get clear on your own, I mean, get help. You don't have to be the Lone Ranger, but at the end of the day, make sure you are really clear so that you can ultimately reverse engineer and get to where you want to go.
One thing I also want to mention, it's kind of going back to what Elsie said of, really sometimes you can just talk to people that's been there,
Mhm.
right? Like even though he did it as far as a podcast, but sometimes you just, I remember when I started the company, I talked to, I set up discussions with people that were already doing what I've been doing, and just kind of met with each of them, kind of like you said, ask them questions, and then you can come up with kind of a game plan after you talk to a couple people, and you'll say, oh, okay, each of these individuals did this, and this, so that must be something that's a must, right? And then just being able to just learn from every lesson. You don't have to go through it, right? Somebody else has been through it and is willing to share. And what I notice is that people don't mind sharing. They don't mind talking, right? And if you can, get a couple people that are willing to share with you, then yeah, you can learn a lot from those experiences without having to, go through them, live them yourself. And, so yeah, I think that was just a key takeaway.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you, Elzie, for sharing everything that you've shared. How can the people best connect with you?
The easiest way is via email. I'm always on my phone. So if you email me at Mayor, MAYOR, at podcasttown.net, I will get it. And connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay. Good stuff. Again, we want to thank you for everything that you shared. And speaking of sharing, don't forget to
Share the show. Share the show. Don't keep it to yourself. Share the show.
That's right. Don't keep this a secret. Also, don't forget that you can listen to this episode and the other episodes we have on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or any of those other places, any of those listening apps where you like to listen to podcast content. That is our time for this week's episode of the 30-Minute Hour podcast. And until next time, have a great one.